Welcome to Stormwatch. This is my movie review for A Million Miles Away, starring Michael Peña. And if you haven't already, please smash the subscribe button and click on that bell so you can notify if your future feels. And be sure to give this video a thumbs up. And yes, after checking out A Million Miles Away, starring Michael Peña over on Amazon Prime, I gotta say this movie was awesome. I mean, just plain awesome. Inspiring when you actually look at the story because it's based on a true story. So as far as biopics go, this movie was great. I mean, I don't know the actual background story to this movie. I mean, I'm not familiar with it at all, even though I am very much into the NASA and space flight and all that other stuff. I like watching all that stuff on TV and YouTube and everything. So this movie was really good. Now, this was probably the first time I've actually ever seen Michael Peña do a totally dramatic role. I'm not saying that he can't do it. I thought he did a really fantastic job in this movie. I mean, all I'm saying, this is the first time I've actually seen him actually have that kind of role. I mean, there was like a little like kind of comedic moments in it, but it was, for the most part, it was based on this man's life. And I have to say, this thing's awesome. Now the director, I'm not familiar with any of her work, so I can't really say like one way or another, but for the most part, I thought she did a pretty damn good job with this movie. I mean, I enjoyed it from start to finish. And even like that one part where he knew the astronaut that was on the Columbia and stuff like that, when that happened in the movie, I'm like, oh man, no way, because I remember when that happened, and I'm like, oh my God. And I don't know, I unfortunately do not know the astronauts that were aboard the Columbia when it just did not make it, you know what I'm saying? So felt kind of bad, but at the same time, like, oh man, that would be so, I just can't imagine that, you know what I mean? Just that really got me, you know what I'm saying? I was like, oh my God. A Million Miles Away is a 2023 American biographical drama film detailing the life of José M. Hernández, the first Mexican-American astronaut, directed by Alejandra Marquez Abella. The original screenplay was written by Bettina Gilois, but was rewritten by Hernán Jiménez and Abella, based on Hernandez's autobiography, Reaching for the Stars. In July of 2022, Amazon Studios acquired the distribution rights to the film, which was previously in development at Netflix. The studio would later switch it to a MGM release following the formation of Amazon MGM Studios Distribution in 2023. Filming took place in Mexico City. A Million Miles Away was released on Amazon Prime Video on September 15th of 2023. Starring in this movie, Michael Peña, Garret Dillahunt, Rosa Salazar, Bobby Soto, Julio Cesar Cedillo, Verónica Falcón, Sarayu Blue, and Eric Johnson, just to name a few. Currently, A Million Miles Away is sitting with a Rotten Tomatoes score of 89%, with 45 top critics reporting in. The majority of the top critics are liking this movie, and their general consensus is this. Thanks in part to a pair of appealing lead performances, A Million Miles Away is one inspirational biopic that mostly avoids heavy-handed gimmicks. Now, I mostly agree with that consensus, but I don't really understand what they mean by heavy-handed. I mean, because considering what this man went from and what he achieved, to me that just shows somebody who's like really focused, really driven, and just keeps going until they achieve what they set out to do. I mean, to me, that's awesome. That's an awesome story, and the fact that he actually pulled it off makes it even so much better. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I totally agree that it was inspirational because he went from being an immigrant farmer to an engineer to an astronaut. I mean, you can't write this stuff, but it actually happened, so you can write this stuff. So this movie is totally awesome. Michael Peña, awesome performance, but he's not going to get like an Oscar or anything for it because it went straight to Amazon. So he might get an Emmy, maybe, at the most. I mean, he deserves something because his performance in this movie was just phenomenal. Over on the audience side, it's sitting with a score of 97%, with 250 plus fans telling you what they think. Now, majority of those fans are loving this movie. Now, I didn't put a review in the Rotten Tomatoes, but I'm definitely part of that group that loves this movie. This movie was very inspirational, at moments very heartbreaking, and there was quite a few heartbreaking moments in this movie. I mean, one is when his cousin gets killed. Now, I am not really sure if his cousin got killed in a car accident or if he got killed by a drive-by shooting. I must have missed that part because I didn't really catch it, because it was shortly after he gave him the car as a gift. Next thing you know, he's got a funeral. I didn't get that. And I think he did say something about it being a shootout, so I don't really know exactly how he died. I'll have to probably watch that part again, but that was pretty I'm like, oh, no way, man. And then also when his astronaut friend lady who went up in the Columbia and they did not come back down, they had an accident and they pretty much broke up on re-entry. So that was kind of heartbreaking, right? I mean, it just kept on coming and coming. And at first I thought when like his wife was like touching her head or something like that when he was about ready to take off, I thought she was like getting sick or something, like having cancer or something along them lines and whatever, but they didn't. That's not what happened. And again, this story was so inspirational. It shows you what it takes. If you like, once you set your mind to it, you can achieve what you want to achieve, right? I mean, at least for the most part, you like to hope so, right? Oh, and I almost forgot another heart-wrenching moment when the teacher shows up after he's about ready to launch off into space, and she kept the picture that he drew when he was in her class. And I was like, oh my God, that got me like right here, man. I was like almost crying. You know what I'm saying? I mean, because that was like very powerful stuff. You know what I mean? I mean, to me, that was like one of the best scenes in the movie. Something else I thought was pretty cool about this movie, when we finally got to the end and he finally got to go up into space, instead of like spending a whole lot of money on their budget, which I'd still, like I said earlier, I don't know what the budget for this movie was, but whatever it was, they saved a lot of dough by using actual footage from NASA themselves when he actually went up. And I think even the rocket launches were all from footage from NASA too. So they saved a ton of money when it came to that as far as that goes for production. You know what I mean? I mean, because with a space movie, you can easily spend a lot of movie on special effects, but they didn't really have to do that because it was pretty much all leading up to the point to where he did go up. And even like when they had the Columbia stuff, that was all like used footage. You know what I mean? So they didn't like make anything new as far as that went. So I thought it was kind of cool that they incorporated that into this movie. And that's pretty much where the movie ends anyway, because he goes up and then he comes back down. Now, my only question is, now that they don't have the shuttle program, did he go back up any other time after that, right? I don't know. I mean, I haven't really looked, but I was just kind of wondering, because he did go up at least once. Did he go up again, right? I mean, I don't know if he went up on the last shuttle mission or not. So, but I kind of wonder, did he go up? Is he still involved with NASA? Right? So, I don't know. Like I said, this movie was pretty cool, and I thought that was a pretty cool add to the movie. Now, normally, I would be going over the budget, how much it made at the box office, and we'll have to see how this thing performs on week 2 to see if whether or not if it's got any legs. Can't do that with this movie because it went straight to Amazon, so I don't really know if we'll ever find out what the viewership numbers was for this movie. I mean, obviously, most of the people who have watched it, according to Rotten Tomatoes, is liking it, right? So there is that, but other than that, it's not like they're going to really gain any money out of it. Would they get some subscribers out of it? Maybe, but will we ever find out the numbers? Maybe. I don't know, maybe. I mean, that's partially one of the things that they're really striking for with the writers and the actors. They have the streaming services don't really show what their numbers are and how they figure out what is getting watched and what isn't. I mean, there's not commercials, or at least for the most part, there's not commercials spots being sold for these shows, so that you can't go buy advertisement dollars, right? So at least not yet. I mean, there's a lot of ad-supported tiers, so eventually we might see some of those numbers, but for right now, we'll never know, right? I mean, this is a good movie if you have, it's like a 2-hour runtime, and if you have 2 hours, and you've got nothing really much to do, I highly recommend sitting down and watching this movie. You'll be really inspired. I mean, they did some time jumps in this thing, which was kind of cool, but they didn't really say anything. I mean, you almost kind of had to figure it on your own. At first I saw one, I'm like, did they do a time jump? And then they did, and they kind of showed it, but yet they didn't. So that was my only one thing about this movie I did not like a little bit was the time jumps, which made sense because you're supposed to be telling this man's story. So there's going to be some, right? Or this would be a 5-hour movie. But they didn't really say that there was a time jump, that you almost had to kind of piece it all out, that what was going on screen to figure out that there was a time jump. But other than that, this movie was awesome. I kind of like to watch it again, but who knows? So did you get a chance to check out A Million Miles Away starring Michael Peña? Let me know in the comments down below. What you think? You think this movie was any good? Let me know in the comments down below. I mean, this was a really good story. I'm probably going to watch this thing again. So let me know what you think in the comments down below.